So I asked her a further question. I said, you know, he uses something with biofeedback sensors, etc., etc. She said, no. I was like, what? How is that possible? I knew that was impossible. And yet here was someone telling me it was possible.
So you knew it was impossible for him to take aura pictures without certain equipment?
Yes.
Okay.
But he was doing it.
Okay.
And most people would be skeptical and say it's not possible and walk away.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, if I had done that, the whole trajectory of my life would have been different.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh my God, he can do that? Wow, tell me more.
Mm-hmm.
Give me his name.
Mm-hmm.
And that was this great human, this genius called Patrick Richards, who was an engineer in Michigan, and there's no way I would have been to Michigan, you know, in 100 years. There was no reason for me to. And so I phoned him, and it took me 3 times to, you know, I was persistent. Once I want to go for something, then I don't give up. I just, you know, I will do it and do it and do it. And the rest of the things I will not attempt.
Mm-hmm.
So with this one, I was totally fascinated and completely curious. And so when I phoned him and I finally got hold of him, and I asked him the question, I said, is it true that you do this? Is it true that you take aura photographs with an ordinary camera? And he said, yes. I was like, wow. And then I said, and then he said something very strange. He said, oh, but we don't use it. I said, excuse me? You don't use it? You do this crazy stuff and you don't use it? Well, what do you do then? And he started telling me. And the hair on the back of my neck stood on end. And the hair on my arms, you know, I was getting goosebumps. And I said to him, this sounds like Star Trek. This sounds a bit like Star Trek. Because Star Trek was my favorite, one of my favorite programs at that time. And he laughed and he said, it's a bit like that. And that's how that adventure started. Mm-hmm. So today, and the technology that he had invented, which permitted this imaging to take place, is called the Illuminator. It wasn't called the Illuminator at that time, but it today is called Illuminator. And the Illuminator is a Star Trek technology. It's a real-life Star Trek technology in the sense that you can travel beyond space-time sitting in your house through the imaging. And this is going to sound a little crazy, but I will say it anyway. The Illuminator creates a hole in space-time through the imaging, and we know that because we've done the imaging to prove it. We do something called remote imaging, where you literally go beyond space-time.